Chapter 29. All aboard for the Promised Land. In September, we left Heathrow for our first trip to the States. It was a long flight by Air India economy. When we finally emerged at JFK, it was dark. Manhattan had been glimpsed out of the aircraft window, and Nick, Simon, Roger, Andy, and I were all incredibly excited as we made our way into the arrivals hall, to be greeted by long lines waiting to clear immigration. Finally, it was my turn to face the terrifying-looking customs officer, paunchy, mirrored shades. You know the look. I must have neglected to fill out my immigration form properly because the officer in charge wanted to know where I would be spending the night. I had no idea, so I called back down the line to our tour manager. "Where are we staying tonight, Richard? What's the name of the hotel?" Richard cupped his hands either side of his mouth and shouted back, "The Holiday Inn!" That answer didn't satisfy my officer. He took off his shades the better to glare at me. "The Holiday Inn where?" "The Holiday Inn where, Richard?" "Long Island." "The Holiday Inn, Long Island," says my man, ironically. "I'm sorry, I'm in a band." That seemed to work. He put his shades back on and sighed, stamped the papers, handed back my passport and said, "Well, if we need to find you, we'll just put out an APB for a funny-looking guy with purple hair." "It's Bordeaux, not purple, you wanker," I muttered under my breath, walking over to the baggage carousel. We collected 2 self-drive rental cars from Avis. I sat in the passenger seat of one alongside Richard and eagerly unfolded the map. I always fancied myself the navigator. Roger and Nick were in the back seat, and Andy and Simon were in the other car. We had to get onto the Van Wyck Expressway, but all I could find referenced on the map were express. "I can't find the fucking expressway, Richard, and what's a fucking express?" "I think they're one and the same," said Richard, who had been to the United States before. We all assumed that our first New York gig would be in Manhattan, Kojak's Manhattan, the place with the high homicide rates, the streetwalkers, and the Empire State Building. But as the signs directing us to Long Island made clear, we were heading the wrong way. A low moan gathered force as we realized that the best view we'd be getting of Manhattan that night was in the rearview mirror. Duran Duran's first US gig was actually in New York State, on Long Island, and the Holiday Inn was in a town called Hicksville. By the time we checked in, it felt like we were paying a good times tax before we could enter the Promised Land. When I woke up the next morning, I was amazed by 2 things: the size of the breakfast and the number of TV channels. I ate bacon, sausage, scrambled eggs, hash browns, bagels, pancakes, maple syrup. I watched The Munsters, The Addams Family, Mr. Ed. I Dream of Jeannie, Lost in Space. I liked this place. The gig the following night at the Spit Club in Leviton was even more amazing, jam-packed with kids who seemed to know all the songs from the album, Planet Earth, Girls on Film, Careless Memories. They were friendly and enthusiastic, just like the kids back in Birmingham, and we felt at home. The fashions were different, not so extreme, but you could tell that they wanted it, that they were ready to break from the chains of denim and T-shirts. In the States, we were always thought of as the epitome of a new wave band. The terms new romantic and futurist, which were being attached to us by the British press, all got rolled into this one catch-all term. We were fortunate to have had massive support from a radio station on Long Island, WLIR, which was known as the East Coast Knowledge for new British music. The station embraced Duran from day one and was responsible in large part for turning young Americans onto our music. As well as through the independent and college radio stations, our music was also becoming popular thanks to the Rock America network of video clubs. These were extraordinary venues, mostly large ballrooms, that had taken to projecting videos onto giant screens above the dance floor. The artists that were most successful with this audience were those who were combining cutting-edge visual material with groovy dance beats: Adam and the Ants, Ultravox, Depeche Mode, and us. The energy and creativity that was coming out of the British video boom was finding its place in America. There is a fantastic clip on YouTube of a video club mocked up in a TV studio. MV3 was a short-running music video show that could only be seen in a few West Coast cities. If you check out Romeo Void's performance of Never Say Never, when the cameras pull back from the band's video to reveal a dance floor crowded with teenage kids dancing the Planet Earth dance, that's the closest I've seen to what those American audiences looked like that year. The last thing we had done before leaving London was film our latest contribution to this new art form, the video for girls on film. 2 versions, one for the single and one to accompany the longer dance mix of the song, the night version, which was specifically intended for these video clubs. This night version video became the biggest hit across the Rock America network that summer, in no small part because it was very, very raunchy. It was filmed in a warehouse in North London, with the band playing on a stage at one end of the set, at the other a boxing ring, in which there took place a succession of increasingly lurid scenes. The sumo bout, the shaving cream on the pole, the mud wrestling, and of course the ice cube on the nipple. So many guys have said to me over the years in hushed tones, "Oh my God, that video, I watched it over and over." Is there a wow quite as wow as the crossing of the East River into New York City? We could barely contain ourselves as Manhattan unfolded in front of our eyes. This was the city of the Ramones, the New York Dolls, Frank Sinatra, and now Duran Duran. We checked into the elegant St. Moritz Hotel on Central Park South. Outside, a line of horse-drawn carriages waited to take tourists on romantic tours of Central Park. Inside, red velvet splendor enveloped us. I had a room the size of my suitcase, but I didn't care because it was a room with a view, 12th floor, corner. I was not planning on spending much time in here, but standing at the window, looking north across the park, it was breathtaking. I had to call Mom and Dad to share my excitement. 4742-163? Mom, it's me. Hello, lovey. Mom, I'm in New York. What time is it there? Oh, are you? It's almost 6 o'clock. I'm in the hotel, standing at a window overlooking Central Park. It's amazing. There have been a lot of fans here today. Your dad's been talking to them. We're playing tonight, at the Ritz. That sounds fancy. Do you want to speak to your father? Sure. After I'd hung up, Richard called to tell me to be in the bar downstairs at 8 p.m. and reminded me, not for the first time, to change my watch. The ground floor lobby bar at the St. Moritz still lives in my memory as the most beautiful, sexy, suggestive drinking establishment I have ever ventured into. The smell of perfume and cigars, dollars, furs and jewels, and glittering glasses brimming with the romance of highballs and cocktails. The pianist played Cole Porter. I sat on a bar stool and ordered a rum and coke, helping myself to the snack nuts. One by one, the band gathered. Everyone was buzzed. There was a great sense of occasion. If you want to know what we looked like that night, what we were wearing, look at the girls on film video. Simon had taken to wearing military-style suits by Anthony Price. He had one in blue and one in beige, and a scarf tied around his head as a headband. Actually, everyone was wearing headbands. The blue and white striped matelot shirts that Roger had started to wear had caught on. Now 3 of us were wearing them. The suede pixie boots were still working, with trousers tucked in. Suit jacket sleeves were rolled up. Anthony Price hated when we did that, although Michael Mann noticed it when he was styling Miami Vice. Everybody was high on the energy of the scene. Outside, 2 white Cadillac limousines waited for us, paid for by our American label, Capitol. This gesture would endear them to us for the next 5 years. Was there a more fabulous moment in the band's history than stepping into those cars that warm fall Friday evening in New York? I don't think so. The 5 of us all climbed into one car, label and management into the other. It was a decent drive downtown to the venue on 11th Street. 1 straight line, I noticed, then 1 left. It seemed as if somehow the ambience of the bar had been transferred into the limousine. Have you ever sat in an American stretch limousine? The crystal decanters, whiskey, vodka, gin, with plenty of mixers on ice, and a TV set tuned to the local news, always with awful reception. There were neon pinstripes pulsing along the interior roofline. It was less a car, more a nightclub on wheels. We loved the buttons that pushed up the dividing wall between us and the driver's cabin. Spinal Tap got that right. The Ritz had played host to U2's American debut the previous year and would do the same for Depeche Mode in '82. There was a balcony around the main dance floor and the club boasted a 30-foot video screen, which made it our perfect venue. It was like we were home from home. Like at the Spit, the kids in the crowd knew all the words. The difference here in New York City was the higher level of fashion consciousness. These kids looked like us. I wrote a postcard home to my parents. I was clearly having the time of my life. Well, what can one say? I'd stay here forever. Yesterday, Simon and Garfunkel did a reunion gig in Central Park in front of 500,000 people. Ridiculous.